It's one of those nights again, I say to myself, wiping the sweat off my brow. I try to close my eyes and doze off, but something doesn't let me pass out. My room, a cold, dark oasis of privacy, safety, but more importantly, work and potential. My head begins getting bombarded by thoughts of the future, an infinite number of possibilities that could go differently. This school, this job, these skills, those skills. An ungodly amount of information and emotions flood my brain. All of these options, a capability to create the life I desire. But the foggy mist of uncertainty scares me, haunts me, and taunts me. My conscience tells me to enter the fog, tells me to sacrifice my potential for one future, one career, one fulfilling life. But I don't listen. There's so much more potential here, so much more comfort, a safety bubble. I pick up my phone and begin to stare at it, as if it's a needle whose sharp point glistens and shimmers. Before I know it, I inject it, stab it into myself, insert the content slowly into my veins and begin scrolling, numbing my mind. The sweet taste of dopamine enters my brain, and there's nothing quite like it. Nothing could compare to it. Nothing will ever feel better than this. But in the back of my mind, something claws away at me. Deep down inside, I'm still scared to face that fog. And if I keep going this way, I'm going to die alone forever. The truth of the world is, I can't keep running away from my responsibilities anymore. I can't keep hiding behind instant gratification. I can't keep denying the truth that I have to grow up. I've had too many nights like that. Nights where I couldn't sleep because my brain just can't handle the fact that I have to sacrifice my potential for a future career path. And on those nights, when the world doesn't feel right, when I'm overwhelmed with the fear of an uncertain future, I sit down and rewatch Aggretsuko Season 2. Because it not only comforts me with its wonderful humor and charismatically written characters, but it also gave me a remarkably powerful message that I believe young people like myself need to hear. This is how Aggretsuko Season 2 changed my life, and how young people have to face our fears of adulthood. Aggretsuko Season 2's pacing and mood are much more reflective and slow compared to the first season. Season 1 was depressing, existentially terrifying, and fast-paced. On the other hand, Season 2 is much more calm and deliberate in the way its scenes are laid out. Season 1's pacing could be described as fast, ferocious, erratic paint strokes that are done deliberately to create an action-filled piece of work. Season 2, however, feels much more like a watercolor piece where the paint was splotched onto the canvas, slowly dripping, spilling across, creating a different atmosphere compared to the more aggressive strokes of the former piece. Season 2 simply shows us the characters living life. From Haida's struggle of still trying to shoot a shot with his coworker to Anai's undeniably understandable perspective. Aggretsuko Season 2 is a structured set of episodes that details the personal growth of many characters that real people can actually relate to. The discussion should start with our favorite lovable doofus Haida. Since it's been a long time, I'll quickly recap a little bit of my first video. Haida was, and still is, my favorite character, particularly because his arc was incredibly amazing to watch. It presented a goofy, charismatic, kind-hearted, but impulsive guy who managed to pick himself up and get the courage to ask out his crush. Haida's character was greatly established during the first episode, and his scenes were easy to be invested in. His crush on Retsuko felt genuine, and it's clear how they would match well together. Haida's eventual confession was effectively built up to, and the heartbreak from his rejection really hit home for me. The most skillfully written part of the season was that Haida's feelings managed to connect to Retsuko's toxic relationship with Sasuke, because Haida had a romantic desire for a concept of Retsuko and not her true self. Her true self being represented by the karaoke she commonly vents with. Haida's arc was powerful, relatable, and incredibly skillfully written for a show about silly office animals. With that said, the show evolves by having Haida take several actions that show he wants to be there and provide for Retsuko. But the show also manages to balance itself out by still using Haida's feelings as a gag. The early episodes effectively establish Haida as someone who wants to protect the ones he cares about, which is an effective way of getting the audience on Haida's side, and it's his most defining trait during the season. Anai's introduction allows him to be compared to the experienced office workers, jaded and conditioned by their workloads, and Anai, a new employee flying right from college who puts on an excited face but is scared on the inside. The stress is put on display through his threats to the main characters and other office workers. And Anai is set up to be an antagonist as he creates conflict for the show. Anai as a character is the most mixed of the show because a lot of people feel his actions were incredibly hurtful, horrendous, and irredeemable. While his treatment of the other coworkers definitely wasn't the right thing to do, I think Anai is a dark but tragically sympathetic character who shows us the feelings many people have when they become adults and begin entering the working world. Anai always wants to seem pleasant because he's hiding stresses and fears deep down inside. All of his frantic messages don't come from an insidious human being who wants to hurt people intentionally. Rather, Anai is a young, scared man crying for help. It can be seen in all of his facial expressions he makes and the mumbling under his breath. All indicate that the show is trying to make him look like he's possessed by something rather than being a psycho who gets a sick pleasure out of this. It's easy to not understand where Anai is coming from, and admittedly, if anyone were in Retsuko's position, it'd be hard to see it that way, because this stressed young worker is hurting her. As a result of his threats to both Haida and Retsuko, the other office workers try to get Anai to actually do some work, but they all fail. The only person who managed to get Anai to calm down and actually help out was Kabai, surprisingly. Through an unwavering kind spirit, what the show manages to effectively say is that instead of treating people with disrespect or fear or judgment, sometimes the greatest solution is to give them a hand to reach for. Be someone who provides and gives to others, because the only way for a plant to grow is if you feed it, nurture it, and give it all the things it needs to blossom into a beautiful flower overlooking the sunset. The entire show's message truly comes together once the discussion comes to focus on our angry and charming red panda Retsuko, because it's in her arc of becoming a grown-up adult where I think the season truly excels. Throughout the first few episodes, Retsuko's annoyance over her mother trying to take control over her decisions becomes painfully clear, and entering her home, cleaning it, and trying to set up the person who will be with her for the rest of her life. It's with this behavior in mind where Retsuko doesn't feel like an adult, and develops a resentment toward her mother for trying to take control of her life. She feels like a child. It's a regression she feels frustrated over because in her head, she's been an adult for 7 whole years now. She feels like she knows what's best for herself, and she knows what she wants. Right? It's a struggle many people face with their families. Whether they're controlling or not, deep down, people want to feel a sense of independence and control over their own decisions. Whether it comes from an ego, a sense of independence that's nurtured, or that you're born with, doesn't matter. Everyone hates the feeling of being condescended to, of being told what to do with ourselves when that person never asked for opinions or advice. Retsuko's feelings of annoyance shift over once her mother snaps at her, and leads her into making an excuse to take driving lessons, which allows her to both meet Tadano and pursue one of her responsibilities, which plants the seed for Retsuko's arc this season. However, even with the right steps being taken forward, Retsuko still doesn't know what she wants. She doesn't know if she wants marriage, let alone who she wants to be married to. I mention marriage because the season uses marriage as a metaphorical representation of commitment to a future with someone, to a specific path with another human being. Following one path and one path only. In general, that's what the season's themes really cement. It isn't about fun and games, it isn't about Retsuko telling her boss to fuck right off. Aggretsuko is a series that in my eyes has always been a more human story that delves into the struggles the young people of today face. Retsuko as a character represents that, and presents the problems the people of today face. This is accentuated through one of the greatest moments of the season, where Retsuko goes on a date with a guy named Shirota, and they both talk about this present anxiety. It's an intimate, grounded scene because it's dealing with a very real concept that comes with being an adult. That overwhelming feeling that hits your chest, your heart sinking and your brain erratically overthinking. Having so many responsibilities and things to consider when adulthood comes around, leading to an anxious feeling, an uncertainty that things will go well or knowing the path to go down. Although Retsuko and Shiruta's connection is there, it's in Retsuko's indecisiveness that leads to Shiruta going out with someone else instead. Retsuko doesn't have all the time in the world. She doesn't have the ability to hide or run away anymore. Whether someone is prepared or not, their responsibilities will get to them eventually. In this claustrophobic existential moment, Retsuko is given a heartbreaking realization. Which leads me into why Aggretsuko Season 2 really struck a chord with me. In my 17 years of life, I've always struggled with consistently living in the present moment. When I say the present moment, I mean in a state of being where I flow with the universe. When I get to experience, savor, and appreciate everything that life has to offer. A flow state, if you will, where I can live unimpeded by the thoughts I have within my head. Thoughts that desire to be filled by having more money, more views, more things, more skills. That's not to say the desire I have to learn is a bad thing, because far from it. Having a sense of humility to learn and grow is incredibly important for building a moral compass. My issue is that I have a desire to consume rather than create, to take rather than give. And it's only recently when I really rewatched the season and reflected on myself a bit more when I realized that deep down inside of me, I'm scared. I'm scared that I'm not being productive enough. I'm scared I'm not experiencing enough. I'm scared of not seeing the world, because deep down I'm scared of the future. The potential I have that must be crushed and the responsibilities I have to take on. For me, it feels safer to just not choose. Run away from the thoughts that come out to get me, to hide away and numb my mind through social media or just sitting on my ass playing video games, taking in instant gratification to try to cure a stress within that won't be cured because I'm running away from it. It's no wonder why everyone is so addicted to their phones. It's easy to just numb your mind for a few hours instead of thinking about what you want out of life and going for it. It's easier to think about all the potential I have at the young age I'm at, instead of just picking a path and sticking with one thing. This is what I feel Retsuko is going through, and this moment is a scary realization for anyone to face. This scene felt so eerily relatable to me because, like Retsuko, me and a lot of other young people are facing the same thing she is: uncertainty. It's relatable, it's chilling, scary, but it's a powerful moment that gets the message of the season across. We can't run away forever. At my age, where all of the adulthood responsibilities are beginning to get pressed up upon me, it's been getting easier for me to just begin discerning that I feel completely broken. Sometimes I think I'm just not cut out for the real world, because not only do I have to face my personal demons and insecurities, but I also have to face the mightiest of dragons of the real world. Beasts that will push me to my absolute limit. But how can I slay them to reach their treasures if I don't know how to use a sword? How can I approach it if I don't know what it's capable of? How can I see it if it's covered in a misty fog? It's with this uncertainty in mind that some people may come to the conclusion of following someone else's dream because it's a lot easier than finding their own. Because of this way of thinking, Retsuko ends up dating Tadano. Retsuko and Tadano's relationship is interesting because where Retsuko is an indecisive follower of orders, Tadano is an ambitious tech millionaire with a dream of changing the world. Tadano, being someone with a relaxed attitude and no regard for the stresses of life, who's also a big dreamer, is what gets Retsuko attracted to him in the first place, because she has someone to follow and won't have to worry about what she wants. Simply put, Retsuko is putting Tadano's future and needs first because she doesn't understand or know her own yet. Retsuko's indecision leads her into using someone else as a pillar to try to find purpose. But it's with this dynamic in mind that Retsuko falls into an unhealthy abyss of following someone else instead of working with Tadano toward a future they would both be fulfilled by. And Tadano isn't even a bad guy either. In fact, he's an amazing person who understands Aggretsuko, likes her, and the both of them even have good chemistry. But it's just one major thing they disagree on: what they want their future to be. It starts to become painfully clear when Aggretsuko and Tadano disagree about marriage, much like Gori and Washimi did during the season. And it builds a wedge in their relationship, because they have two different paths they're working towards. Gori, Washimi, and Haida recognize that Aggretsuko is someone who will follow orders diligently even if it hurts herself, as we've even seen that during the show. Aggretsuko comes to the realization herself, and it leads to the final episode where the both of them go to the one place Aggretsuko can truly express herself, the karaoke studio, which serves as a metaphor and a motif as it appears during the finales for the first 4 seasons. It's a place that means a lot to her because it allows her to channel up all of her bottled feelings into loud death metal vocals, and in this case it's not much different. Where Aggretsuko was a scared young girl who didn't know what she wanted during all of the episodes prior, the scene serves not only as an exaggerated portrayal of her feelings, but shows that she's not scared of the future anymore because she knows what she wants. And if she doesn't get married to Tadano, she'll never be fulfilled. This scene is not just an anthem, but is a declaration of who Aggretsuko is and what she desires more than anything else. Tadano's reaction is a blank face, one of sorrow and heartbreak, because he knows Aggretsuko's opinion won't be changed. And that's okay. It hurts, of course, because he wanted to be with Aggretsuko forever, but clearly they won't be able to make each other fulfilled in life, so there's no reason to see each other anymore. They have different futures they want to create. While this final episode was interesting the first time I watched it, watching this season now gets to me a lot more, because I've had to make similar decisions with people I cared about. I've had to put people behind because we couldn't agree on paths we wanted for the future. I know how it feels to let go of that attachment, and know how it hurts knowing that no matter what I did, no matter how much I could have put in for someone, I can't change the fact I won't be able to be fulfilled with this person. It hurts because it was an inevitable endpoint, and there was nothing I could do to change that. So watching this season now, it proves to me how the more I live my life, the more I will find to relate to these characters, these situations, and find a comfort in that, because this show will serve as a hand on my shoulder to get me through tough days. And to me, that's what this show truly means to me, and that's what makes me so invested. The season concludes with a simplistic yet beautiful visual of the two individuals heading toward different directions. Aggretsuko knows what she wants now, and she isn't scared anymore. Through a brave declaration and a tough breakup, it's clear Aggretsuko has grown up from a scared, uncertain child to a strong woman who knows who she is and what she desires out of life more than anything. Aggretsuko's second season is about maturing as a human being by figuring out what truly makes her feel at peace in this mess we call life. Through Aggretsuko's experiences and growth, the lesson starts to become clear. Although life can be incredibly scary due to the uncertainty that lays ahead, the only way we can truly overcome this fear is not from running away or hiding, but by boldly standing up, holding sword and shield in hand, and facing the enemy that lies before us. Only through that can we become stronger, more fulfilled people in this chaotic mess called life.